السلام عليكم.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. So we'll start in a minute or so. I know at the moment everyone is muted, everyone's got the camera off. We'll keep it that way. The chat is off. Once we reach to the Q&A phase, I'll enable the chat and you'll be able to speak. So unfortunately, I won't be taking any questions at the moment. Possible you could chat with the host if that's allowed, then send chat to the host. But when we have a chat public, it disturbs the presenters. So we'll keep it like that. Okay, Bismillah, Alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man walah, amma ba'd. Jazakumullah khair for joining us. We thank you for joining us in this. This is one of our first sessions of the Yaseen Youth Center February half-term program. So as you probably have seen, if not, we'll show you soon. We've got a number of programs for this half-term for the youth. All over Zoom, all virtual for anyone to be able to join us. So this is the first of our programs where we'll go through, give some careers advice, and I'll move on to that in a minute, inshallah. We also have a sister story night tomorrow via Zoom. On Thursday, we have the story of Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam. Sheikh Asafuddin will finish off with the 4-part series on Thursday. Friday we have the normal khutbahs. On Saturday we have the entertainment night, and we'll be having a quiz with Dr. Salman Butt. On Saturday we're going to have there'll be a Medina tour, a virtual tour of Medina. We have someone in Medina who will go through some of the main sites in Medina and speak to us about them. And at 7 p.m. or 6 p.m. I think we'll have the Deen and Dunya event. We have some successful people speaking to us, successful Muslims speaking to us and telling us their story and how they achieved where they are. So that's the program. Later on, inshallah, at the end, I will share a poster which gives you the details of these events. At any time, you can go to www.yytours.co.uk/events. That page has all the information, and you can sign up to the events page to our events through that page, inshallah. So in terms of today's program, so today, inshallah, we'll have a career session. And the purpose of this session is to tell the youth and tell us and you about the various different paths that a person can take in terms of their career, which career they can do, what they need to achieve that career, how is it to live in that career? How is your daily life? How well does that career pay? Is it something that pays well? Is it something that you need to work so much for? So there's so many different activities that the person, there's so much information that the person needs to know about these careers, and the purpose of these events is to give you an insight. And for these events, we've got experienced and established professionals from various fields speaking to us about their career so that we can gain information from them. And we'll have a Q&A session at the end, inshallah, where you can ask questions to these established professionals, any question that you may have regarding their career. So this will help you and enable you to make an informed decision, whether it's to take in your A-levels, whether what to do for your GCSEs, whether what to do university, or even after you've graduated, how to get a job or what type of jobs are available to you. So that's the purpose of this event, is to take this information. We've had a previous event on careers, and you will find that on the Yaseen Youth Center or the Yaseen Youth Tours YouTube page, we had a generic event on careers. We spoke about engineering, medicine, academia, and a number of other fields. You can find that on the YouTube on our YouTube page. Today's event, we are dedicating it to arts and media. So today, inshallah, will be the theme we have is arts and media. We'll have people from TV channels, producers or presenters, journalists. We have graphic designers. We have media studies teachers. We have people who work in the art industry, all inshallah available to give us advice, give us an insight to what they do, and so that we can learn more about it and decide if that's what we want to do or not. Inshallah, this is the first of our themed careers advice sessions. In the future, in the next few coming months, we'll do more themes. Maybe we'll do a theme on engineering, a theme on medicine, a theme on law, many different themes we'll inshallah we'll do. If you have any suggestions, please let us know. So that's just the introduction, inshallah. So inshallah, now we'll move on to our program, and the first presenter we'll have here, we have Osman Ali speaking to us. He is a TV producer, and he's going to speak to us about his field. So Osman, I'll allow you to share your video now, inshallah, and you can speak.
Okay, did you want me to share my video? Or did you want me to just speak?
More. Are you able to switch on your video?
I'm pressing it, but it says unable to start video. Because the host has stopped it.
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Okay, let me see why this is. Okay, give me one second, inshallah.
Can you hear me now?
It shows you as talking, but we cannot hear anything. It says Osman A is talking, but no sound is coming out from my side.
Is this any better? Can you hear me now?
Okay. Apologies for that. If Omar is still here, I'm trying to see if it's just something to do. So Arbor, we had you speaking soon. Let me see if you can start and we'll see if it's a problem with just Osman's one or if it's someone else.
Just 1 second. I'm gonna call you on WhatsApp because some of the participants have messaged me saying that they can hear me. It's just you who can't hear me. Assalamu Ibrahim, it's Usman. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now, inshallah. If you start to talk while I sort out the video, because we've had issues in the past and I can't allow all videos to go on. So if you start speaking in your session now, inshallah, I'll sort out the video in the background.
Okay, no worries. Assalamu everybody. Pleasure to meet you all through Zoom. My name is Usman. And I'd like to start off with a quote that one of my teachers said to me when I was at university, one of my religious teachers or mentors that I used to go to for advice. And one of the things he said is that the future belongs to those who see the opportunities before they become obvious. I'll repeat that quote: the future belongs to those who see the opportunities before they become obvious. I'd like to thank Yaseen Toz for inviting me to speak here today in front of all of you. You know, I'm honored and privileged to speak in front of all of you today. You know, honored in terms of all the young leaders that are on this Zoom group and connecting with you all. Shiraz, one of the other speakers, was speaking to me yesterday, and he said to me that you know, he went to the Umrah trip with quite a lot of these youngsters, and you were all leaders within yourselves. And many of you were even getting advice from like Google chief execs and people in like very, very senior positions. So very honored to have this, you know, privilege of speaking to you all and learning from you guys as well. And, you know, amongst the great list of speakers that we have, but privileged because, you know, people like myself from backgrounds that I'm from don't usually get to be in positions that I'm in today. My grandfather migrated to the UK in the 60s, 1960s. And from a young age of when I was born in the 80s, I was able to spend a lot of time around him and learn a lot of the values that I have today from seeing the way that he was in terms of seeing other people, in the way that he would serve other people, in the way that he would cook for people's weddings. He used to have a restaurant as well within Manchester. Working with him in terms of like late shifts with him and my uncles and my dad's takeaways. You know, there were skill sets that I was learning about, you know, customer service, about relationships with people that I didn't realize at the time that I was learning. And a lot of my drive, I would say, from a young age, comes from, alhamdulillah, you know, having a very, very supportive mother that, you know, used to drive me an hour away for me to play football, Brazilian soccer, or used to drive me to youth clubs so I could engage with other people and build relationships, and using my time productively so I wasn't using them on the streets in Longside, which is where my family, my grandparents and my uncles all lived, and where I was brought up was an area called Longside within Manchester. Now, a lot of my drive came from my mum's push and her drive for us to have like a more, if you like, a different future from what my grandfather and my parents had. And obviously that push was to give us the best possible education, you know, that we could possibly get. Now, I was always the cheeky one in my family, you know, I still am as well. I'd always do pranks, I would get into trouble. The younger me, if you dared me, I did it. Even one of my religious teachers, in terms of, you know, he used to take halakas for us and we were really scared of him. On his wedding, my friends dared me to get him. I got him and I ran home and I hid for a long time. Like, I was scared, but because people dared me to, I did it. So that was like a lot of my upbringing in terms of, you know, having, you know, my uncles as inspirations and all the brother that pushed me and drove me. Having a supportive, obviously, mother in terms of drive and trying to use my time productively, and, you know, trying to push me from giving me the best education possible. And then on the last day of school, somebody dared me to do a prank. I did a prank and I got caught by the teachers, and I was literally suspended on my last day in school. And before I could even call my brother to pretend to be my, like, you know, to pretend to be my parents on the phone, my mum and dad were already at school because the school had called them to inform him about my suspension. From there, I went, you know, on to college. I spent 3 years in college because I didn't do really well in my exams, so I had to retake some exams and switch colleges to go to a different one. Literally scraped into university because I, again, didn't do really well in terms of my grades. And my friends followed me from college. They weren't even on my course. They came to my first lecture and we were on the course together, and then they applied because the lecturer thought that they were on the course, and then they were accepted onto the course afterwards. Now, putting that into perspective, like I didn't do really well, in terms of expectations in my GCSEs, didn't do really well in terms of my A levels, in terms of expectations. Even though my mum, I found afterwards, actually sold her own jewelry from her wedding to put me through education, and then didn't do really well in terms of, again, expectations in terms of my university degree. But the best thing I would say about my university is the education I got outside the classroom, the people that I met. Getting involved in the Islamic society, for example, I met different types of Muslims from different parts of the world, which got me questioning my type of Islam in terms of what I was learning in terms of a Pakistani upbringing. But like, I had a Libyan friend and I was saying, okay, why are they doing this and why am I not doing that? I had like friends from Iraq, from Syria, from a university from Sierra Leone, from different parts of the world, that really helped shape my thinking and got me questioning things a lot more. And that for me was the best type of education I learned, by being hands-on. There's that famous proverb, tell me I forget, show me I remember, but if you involve me, I understand. And by being involved is where I started to develop a lot of my skill sets. So for example, the first announcement at Jummah I had to make as Islamic Society president, I flapped it. I was really nervous. And even till today, like my friends teasing me, like trying to make this announcement. But by doing that regularly, I became more confident. By doing that regularly, I started chairing meetings. By doing that regularly, I started to do more talks. By doing that regularly, I then got elected in as the president of my students' union and was able to do more debates. And then by doing that regularly, obviously the confidence grew, and I ran for elections on a national basis and got elected as the first Muslim vice president for the National Union of Students. And even then, I was really scared because I was comparing myself to people who had been in these positions before that weren't from backgrounds that I was from. And I had to get over that psychological barrier that I was good enough to do this position and stop comparing myself to people from middle-class backgrounds and other backgrounds that had a different upbringing and experience from myself. And that took a long time, to be honest, and a lot of friends in terms of who were close to me got me through that hurdle. Now, even my first debate against a politician, if you see like the pictures, I had notes all over my table because I was really scared. But then as I got better and better and better, a year later, I was turning up to the debates saying, okay, what's the topic and who am I up against? And, the confidence grew over time in terms of my knowledge and in terms of, how to handle debates and the stuff that you're supposed to do. Within that as well, then the students' union stuff, when I left the National Union of Students, to be honest, I struggled a lot. Even though I had all these skill sets, I struggled a lot to find jobs when I went back to Manchester. And it took me a while to get, income and get jobs in place. And the first job I got was because of my student activism and the work that I did as volunteer with the, NGOs, was a lot of the community people knew me. So one of the founders of a Syrian-based charity spoke to me and they said, look, we've become exhausted when it's come to giving, the Syrian community and the Arab community in terms of giving donations towards the Syrian cause. Are you able to help us with your contacts to get people more from the Pakistani and the subcontinent community to give towards the ongoing Syrian cause? And alhamdulillah, I got that job. It led to 6 months. A new chief exec came in and he gave me a lot of advice to do consultancy. So I set up some consultancy and then I worked with NGOs for close to 10 years on different projects. And then on the back of that, I was offered a job in London where I was the head of marketing and fundraising for a very small NGO called MADE. But alhamdulillah, for me, it was a really good experience. I went there, it was a senior position. It was a lot of experience. I was learning from different people around me. And I always pick organizations based on my weaknesses because you're going to learn based on the people around you. So I knew I wasn't the most organized person at the time, but the chief exec was really organized and she loved processes and strategies. So I was going to learn that by working directly with her. And it was one of the reasons I picked the organization. I want to give my skill sets back in terms of marketing and fundraising, but also to develop myself from the people around me. As I did that, the journalism route came, the opportunity came. there was a person who came from Turkey and he was looking for talent to set up the offices for TRT World within London. And he was speaking to many, many community people. And all the community people were coming back to me and saying, look, could you give us some recommendations for this? In the end, I had friends working for Channel 4. I had friends working for other channels. And I was always interested in journalism from a young age. So I said to the community people, why don't I put myself forward? I've got a background in NGO work and I've got a background in politics. Why don't we merge it together? And I can put that together working for journalism. And alhamdulillah, it came together. There was a friend who gave a reference, and based on that reference, it was a strong reference. And he was actually from Al Jazeera, and he gave the reference. And because of that reference, I pretty much got that job. Now, I worked there for 2.5 years, but in the end, London just became way too expensive for me. Brexit stuff was happening. My contract was in US dollars. So every month I was getting less and less and less because of the exchange rate. And then because of that, and my wife was working as well, and she was a pharmacist, but it was literally paycheck to paycheck every month. So one of my mentors said to me, I need to become more decisive, and I need to start making harsh decisions. Even if it's a bad decision, it's better than making no decision. So my wife was pregnant at the time, so I knew London just wasn't sustainable anymore. It was a good experience, but financially wasn't sustainable for us. And the two options I had was either to go back to Manchester, stay with family, or I push on the headquarters to give me a job in Istanbul. Now, our digital news department, so in the London office, I did programs and TV from a supporting role. In the as I was leaving the London office, the people who were behind AJ Plus on social media were the people running the social media department now for TRT World. And as I was leaving, Riyadh contacted me, and he was the director for digital strategy. And I was always interested in learning about digital news. And he said, bro, he goes, why are you leaving for? I said, look, I'm not leaving. I'm just seeing what my options are. He said, would you be willing to join my team? And I said, look, if you're asking, definitely, because this is the type of stuff I want to learn. And alhamdulillah, 2 months later, my contract came through. We moved to Istanbul. And then this new role started, and I've been there again for 2.5 years. And it's an editorial position where, I'm in charge of the planning for all the digital news that goes out, but impacting decisions of, the types of content that's going to go out. So for me, this was a really good role in terms of my learning, in terms of the people around me, in terms of my personal development, and also in terms of me learning the future of news in digital formats. And I'll end on this. In terms of like the career stuff, point it all into perspective, like Istanbul for me, so journalism itself, the way it is going, it's not the highest paid in terms of industry unless you get into a senior position. But for me, in getting a good position in this industry in Istanbul, which is a lot cheaper than in terms of cost of living than London, and also a lot cheaper than Manchester as well, because I'm currently in Manchester visiting family, and I can compare the differences in terms of price. Like I have one wage in Istanbul. My wife's not working. We're working on other projects, and it's more than enough for me, my wife, and son. And even when my mum was staying with us in Istanbul for 2 years, it was more than enough for all of us. So in that context, journalism is paying well. But dependent on me, it was like being in Istanbul. It was a lot more in terms of savings and a lot more in terms of cost of living. So from that perspective, it's really well. Like I wouldn't get the same within the UK. So just to end, to put that into context, the one stream which I would say is the most important thing within the message that I'm giving is going back to the quote that I started off. The future belongs to those who see the opportunities before they become obvious. And for me, if you look through my journey, the biggest opportunities are the different people that I met and I built relationships with, because every job that I pretty much got was based on not me applying for jobs, but them knowing me before I even applied for the job, or them asking me for the job, or friends who knew me giving me the references to the jobs that I'm in today, and those references meaning something to the people who were offering the jobs. So the best advice I could get is to get involved in as many things as you can, build experiences, build meaningful relationships with different people, because in 10 years' time, you don't know what doors will open up just because of these relationships. Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah khair. Alhamdulillah, Jazakallah khair for that. It's good to know about other people's experiences. We do apologize. We've got some, I don't know what to call these people. So there's some young kids that are trying to cause trouble. So at the moment, we're not allowing anyone else to join the meeting unless we know exactly who they are. We'll try and send. This is all streaming live on YouTube, so you can actually watch this on YouTube. If you know anyone that wants to join, you can give them the YouTube link. I'll post it in the chat, and they can watch it over YouTube, so we won't have any issues with this. So inshallah, Jazakallah khair, Osman. We'll move on to the our next speaker, inshallah. We've got Shiroz Khan. I'll allow you to unmute and start your video, inshallah. So Shiroz is a filmmaker. He's made a lot of films. Films, so you can see, inshallah, speak to us about. Sorry, I'm just starting the video. So you can speak to us about your career and how a person can get into filmmaking, and also what they can expect if they're into filmmaking. Shiroz, are you there?
Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear and see me?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much for having me. Sorry about the background. I have a young toddler, and mashallah, she's just going to be running around in the background, so it just might be distracting to people. Bismillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Thank you once more to Yaseen Youth Tour. I think we should be asking them for jobs rather than the other way around. But it gave me a lot of hope, because growing up, my aspirations and what I thought that I could achieve was very different to talking to some of the young people today and what their aspirations are and what they know that they can achieve, inshallah. And it gives me a lot of hope to see young people, you know, who have a lot more role models, who come from backgrounds similar to them, to kind of inspire them, that, you know, showing them that they can do anything that they set their minds to. So thank you so much for having me. I'm very, very honored and privileged. And I also just want to say that I owe a lot to pretty much all of the guests who are going to be speaking today. Osman has been almost like a mentor figure for a lot of my life. I've been incredibly inspired by him. I met him in university, when hearing him speak literally just changed my entire perspective on life and on what it means to be true to yourself and what it means to reach some of the highest positions whilst, you know, kind of coming from a background where everyone and everything is telling you that you're not going to make it. I've gone to Arbor's studio late in the evening, just asking him for advice. You know, I know that Asad Beg is doing incredible things. So I have a lot of love and admiration. And I'm only saying this to encourage everyone to YouTube and Google these people and see what they're doing, and to take notes when they're talking, because really you're going to get nuggets and nuggets of wisdom. So very, very honored and privileged. Myself, my name is Shiroz Khan. I'm a writer-director. So I do two things, basically. One is I work in the film industry. So this is the kinds of films that you might watch in the cinema, the kinds of TV that you might watch on Netflix or Apple TV or BBC or Channel 4. So this is really high budget stuff. And I work as a director's assistant within that industry. I'm trying to become a director of that kind of big budget content. But at the moment, I work as a director's assistant in that industry. And alhamdulillah, I feel very, very lucky and privileged to do so, because it's taken a long time to get there. And then the other thing that I do is I actually work as a writer, director, producer, and content creator on stuff that's of a significantly lower budget. So I might make commercials, I might make my own short dramas, short narrative films. I might make, you know, kind of other types of content. But that's the stuff I also do. And ideally, I want these two worlds to merge so that I can be writing and directing stuff that you might watch in the cinemas or that you might watch on Netflix one day. So just a little bit about my story. I've always been super passionate about films and filmmaking. It's something that, you know, I kind of grew up in an age where YouTube was just coming up, you know, and me and my friends at the time, we literally used to make stuff ourselves on, you know, these digital cameras which had just come out, which could only record 30 seconds at a time. And these had some of the worst quality that you can imagine, you know, like what you can shoot on your iPhone today is 1,000,000 times better than what we could shoot on an expensive camera back in the day. So me and my friends, we used to make all kinds of stuff growing up. We used to actually share it on CDs, and even before that, just to expose how old I am, on these ancient devices called floppy disks. Yeah, and floppy disks, for anyone who knows their tech, had 1.4 MB of storage space. Just think about that. Like these days, you have hard drives with a terabyte of storage. These had 1.44 MB. One of the pictures on your phone is like 5-6 MB. So that's how ridiculous it was. But yeah, it's something that I kind of always knew that I wanted to do, because I used to watch a ton of film and TV, and it used to make me feel like, you know, I could enter into different worlds and engage with people who I hadn't ever met before, who had different experiences to mine. You know, like I had a group of friends, but then I could be a part of a lot of different groups of friends. You know, I could be a part of the Harry Potter universe. I could be a part of the Indiana Jones universe. I could watch a film like Rocky and think that, oh man, one day I can be a boxer as well. And so what happened is, I told my parents that this is what I wanted to do. And like a lot of Pakistani parents, they were a little bit shocked, and they kind of made a deal with me, which I'm very grateful for. And what they said was, you need to make sure that you do something practical with your life. We've wasted too much time and money and effort to try and get you educated, made too many sacrifices for you to just waste your life. And I thought, fair enough, I'll hear, you know, I hear what they're saying. And what they said was, we want you to go to university and to try and work hard. And once you're done with university and you have a backup, we'll let you do what you want to do. So I did that. I went to uni, I did a maths degree. You know, I don't know what I was thinking, but I got through that. And then I left uni, and now I have no idea what to do. I know no one in the industry. I have no idea how the film and TV, anything works. And the craziest thing happened, which is I was never really a practicing Muslim until I went to university and started meeting people who knew so much more about Islam than I did. And I thought, as a, you know, I just had not been exposed to that before. And I just hadn't had that interest or you know, exposure. And when I went to university, I started becoming so interested in Islam, and alhamdulillah, Allah guided me. And I realized at that point that I wanted to do something really useful with my life. And then I entered into one of the biggest dilemmas that I've ever faced, which is film and TV just wasting time? And so if it's just wasting time, is becoming a film director just helping a ton of people waste a ton of time? And I just thought, is that going to be my career? And is that what I'm going to do for the rest of my life? And so that was a very tough time for me. And I had a lot of mental health issues, you know, just trying to figure out what I should do with my life. Because what I was passionate about and what I thought I was good at seemed to be, you know, like, seemed to be the kind of thing where people were really discouraging me from doing. And I did get advice from a lot of people at the time. And at that time, people told me, if you want to be a practicing Muslim, you can't enter this industry. It's too filled with all kinds of bad influences. So I heard that, and I thought that's fair enough. But what happened to me was, in my third year of university, a bit of a traumatic event happened, which was the Woolwich attacks. So this happened in 2013, and it shaped me a lot, because I remember the day after it happened, I was just walking in uni, and I'd never had this kind of experience before. But I heard two people in front of me talking about Muslims, and they started making jokes about how we'd stone them if we disagreed with them, or just saying all kinds of crazy things, which I just couldn't believe that, you know, anyone thought or believed. And what I did, I was maybe, you know, kind of a bit brave at the time, but I tapped on their shoulder and said, like, hey, I'm a Muslim. If you want to have a chat or a conversation, I'm always down to answer any of your questions. I'll tell you whatever you want to hear, but I just don't think that you should be making assumptions like that about people like myself. And they were super embarrassed because they wouldn't have said something like that in front of me. But, you know, they said that because they thought that they weren't being heard. But at that point, I realized a lot of the thoughts and opinions and ideas that I have in my life genuinely come from the kinds of film and TV that I watched growing up and that I still watch. And that is the truth, because storytelling is powerful. And storytelling is a tradition which has been used since the beginning of time. You know, not to compare what we do as filmmakers or novelists or whatever with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's perfect method of communicating with us via his word, the Quran. But in many instances in the Quran, stories are used to teach us things or to strike analogies. And this is something that is so powerful, because as humans, we relate to other humans doing things and feeling things. And so if, you know, you have an atheist friend, let's say, and you want to talk about the existence of God, some of them might totally not be willing to engage in a conversation about that, or might completely turn off the second you start talking about religion or God or things in a certain way. Whereas if you make a sci-fi film like Star Wars, or, you know, anything that's come out in the last few years, like Blade Runner or something, you can talk about existentialism, or, you know, the creation or existence of the universe, or God. And you can talk about all these kinds of issues in a very subtle way that's super entertaining and that people will totally engage with. So that was what really interested me. And then the second thing was, I thought, if I really want to get to the level where I can change people's minds and I can influence people's ideologies, right, which is the highest level of influence, in my opinion, right, to change someone's ideas and thoughts is just like, you know, it's an incredible feat. It's an incredible privilege. What I would say is, you know, you absolutely want to be the best at what you're doing. And so you need to practice and train and either go to film school or try and work on the best productions you can. So that was the decision I made. And alhamdulillah, it took a long time. And what I did was, while, you know, after graduating from uni, I started working at a charity as well. And Usman was actually in the same charity. And that's another place that we know each other from. And that was because I wanted to do something that I was super passionate about, but I had no clue how to enter the film industry. And while working at this charity, I started making short films on the side. And one of the first short films I made did really well at film festivals. And what happened is I flew to New York to accept a bunch of awards that we had won. And I literally thought that my career is made. But what happened is I flew back to London and realized that I'm just continuing at my job and nothing's changed. And no one's giving me £1 million to make my next film. And that was a big lesson that I learned, where I don't think there's necessarily a big break. I think that you have to work your socks off until the day Allah takes you. If you truly want to excel and truly want to make a difference. You know, some things might get easier, but if we want to practice things with ihsan, with excellence, if we want to be the best in our fields, we need to work really, really hard, constantly, all the time, to make that happen. So the other thing I'd say, I might be running out of time, so I'm going to try and wrap up very quickly. I don't want to take up too much time. There's a question about what does my typical working day and week look like? At the moment, I'm working on an Apple TV series. So again, on these big budget productions, I tend to be a director's assistant. What I'm doing on that is whatever the director needs. And some days that can be nothing other than basic things like getting them tea and coffee, getting her like basic things that she needs. And that's what I'll do in the entire day. And then there's other days where I'm being asked to direct a test shoot that they're doing for Apple TV executives in Los Angeles. And so it's literally a mixed bag. It's whatever they need you to do. But this is, I mean, it's really an amazing privilege to get the opportunity to work in the industry. But at the same time, the stuff that I'm doing on the side, which is working on my own films, applying for film funding to try and make bigger and better films, using better equipment, working more professionally, getting my stuff into film festivals, trying to win awards, all of that kind of stuff is the stuff that you need to be doing at the same time. The question about whether it's a comfortable job or salary, this is a very, very tough industry. And what I'd say is you should only enter the film industry if you absolutely are, really want it more than anything. Because lots of the time you work 14-hour days. For a long time, your salary is quite low, right? Once you become a director, you're chilling, you are living the life. But until that happens, it can be a long road. And now remember, I'm talking about directing narrative content, which is like drama, comedy, horror, the kind of stuff that you watch on TV, the kind of stuff that you watch in films. If you're talking about content creation, if you want to make promo videos for social media or for brands and stuff, it's a very different journey. It's a very different route. But in narrative and drama, you're often doing super low paid work for a long time. You're working crazy hours. It's very hard to maintain a work-life balance. But what you get at the end of that is incredible opportunities if you stick it out. So that's what I'd say. I'd say don't enter this industry to make money. It's too hard work and you have to make too many sacrifices to make that happen. But if you love storytelling, if you really think like, this is something that I can do, that I can be a part of, and you think that, this is something that can have a positive influence on myself, on the ummah, on the world, then I would say do it wholeheartedly and ask people for advice. And I'm always happy to give people advice. It's a long journey and you need people to keep you sane. And the other thing is to keep in close contact with Muslims who understand what these industries are like, but who also have a strong grounding in Islam, so that you can really kind of discover what the correct boundaries are and what you should be doing and which situations you should be refraining from in that kind of environment. What are the main skills required for this job? What I'd say is, and I'm just wrapping up in 30 seconds, what I'd say is you need to be assertive, tenacious, passionate, proactive, and willing to do a lot of low-level work, because you often have to work your way up right from the bottom. So it's super, super important that if you want to be in this industry, you don't need a degree, you don't need to do a lot of things, but you need to work super, super hard. And then the final thing I'll just say is I'm always willing to connect with people on my website, shirozkhan.com, on any of my socials, which I'm sure they can share with you afterwards. Let me know if you need anything. I might not be available for the Q&A because I'm literally going to set right now, but I will try and tune in. And other than that, I just wish everyone the best of luck. I think everyone can be incredible change makers in whatever field you do. The most important thing in the world is our niyyah, our intentions. If we do something for Allah's sake our work becomes ibadah, right? We're getting rewarded for the work that we're doing. So whatever you choose to do, just remember, my work is for Allah's sake, and you're immediately, you've transformed what you're doing. Whether that's film, whether that's media, whether that's TV, or whether that's just something that seems like it doesn't have that much of an impact. Jazakallahu khairan, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. And I'll try and sign on for the Q&A as well. Take care, Islam.
Jazakallah khairan. Jazakallah khair for that. Very, very nice to know your story, and we appreciate your honesty in terms of how the job is and what's required. And that's exactly the whole purpose of this session, is for people to really and truly understand what the careers before them are, so that they can actually, when they make a decision, they know they don't go into something that they don't know. So Jazakallah khair for that. Next, we have Asad Baig. I'm going to allow you to unmute and switch on your video now, inshallah. So Asad is a journalist. He used to work for Channel 4, at the moment working for Al Jazeera. So very big name. So he's there with these big companies. So inshallah, it'll be very nice to hear from you, Asad, about your experiences.
Yeah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. So yeah, I am a correspondent for Al Jazeera. I'm generally based out in Iran, Tehran. So I cover everything that happens in Iran, generally, from the politics and just general day-to-day life stories that happen there. And before that, I was a correspondent based in the UK and working on news and investigative journalism. And that essentially means that you do day-to-day news, anything that's on the news agenda, to breaking news. So I did a lot of the big terrorism stories, London Bridge. I did Grenfell Tower when that happened, and just kind of reacting to the news. And that varies from like going live. So you're up live on air, reporting and letting people know what's taking place, to packaging stories and investigations where it could take up to a year or maybe longer, working on a story, building contacts and sources and piecing stuff together to try and uncover or tell a story. So that's essentially what I do as a journalist. It's important to say that not all journalists work on TV. Not all journalists work in front of the camera. There's a lot of work that happens behind the camera. A lot of journalists are print journalists. You get a lot of journalists, data journalists nowadays that kind of go through lots of the facts and figures and kind of break them down or try to make sense of them. So journalism is a massive, massive field. It's very, very competitive, and you need a lot of determination and grit just to kind of like stay in it. Forget about getting in, but once you get in, you have to kind of stay in it. It's a very difficult and competitive field. So if I was to tell you just some figures, in the UK media, 75% of journalists are white middle class males. Muslims make up about 0.1% or 0.4% of the media industry in the UK, when we make up 4% of the population, 4 to 5% of the population. So we're massively underrepresented. And if you break down in terms of class, it's probably even fewer of us in the UK media industry. So it's, as you can imagine, it's very difficult. And also there's a lot of pressures. It's a very political field, especially for Muslims, at least those that are kind of prominent or have some sort of voice. There's a lot of pressures in terms of from the communities that we represent, but also from those that have a certain agenda and want to push a particular narrative. And sometimes, a lot of the times, Muslim journalists, or even journalists of color, find themselves targeted, sometimes on social media, sometimes by organized campaigns. So yeah, that's essentially what I do. You have to apologize. I joined this session late. I was given the wrong time, so I don't know exactly what the format has been. So feel free to kind of jump in and kind of ask any questions if I'm going astray. So my path to journalism was that I went to university. I studied a combination of politics, philosophy, and journalism. But it's important to state that I was working as a journalist even whilst I was doing my degree. So I was going out there, finding stories, writing stuff, getting published. Even like in my first year of my degree, I was getting published. And then I got a scholarship after my degree to do a postgraduate in broadcast journalism. And even then, I was still working. So one day a week, I was working at the BBC, BBC Radio. And then before I'd finished the course, I was offered a job at the BBC, reporting full time at regional news. And the one thing I would say is that, again, you have to have the drive, the passion, the determination to make it in this job. But also, you have to have a passion for telling stories, for telling people stories. And that's something that I did throughout. So even when I was a student, even when I was working at the BBC, I was always working on stories. I was always trying to build my contacts and build trust with people. Because there's one thing that, yes, it is a competitive field, but if you have the contacts and if you have trust, or if you have a certain view of how to approach a story that other people may not, then people will trust you, and then you will get stories. You will get stories on air or published, because there's so much stuff out there. There's so much content, especially within the Muslim communities, that we have underrepresented voices, and we have such a rich culture and communities that people actually want to hear from, and we can shed light on. And where I'm currently working at Al Jazeera in Iran, the worldview of Iran is very, very narrow, and it's an opportunity, at least for my team, to try and shed light on actually what Iran is actually like, away from the politics, away from what we see on kind of like some of the Western media outlets of day-to-day life, about the kind of nuances of society, how diverse it is, and the differences within that society. And it's not what we generally see on TV. And yes, like media and journalists do have, I would say, somewhat of a negative view in society. Like they're not seen. A lot of times journalists are not trusted. But I think that that comes down to the individual journalist, and also kind of sometimes media outlets, because a lot of the time they're sensationalist, and they have an agenda, or they don't report in the context that they should. But then the responsibility falls on our shoulders, those of us that do care, that are passionate about this, to kind of right those wrongs, or at least offer some sort of balance in terms of our reporting and how we report, and the stories that we decide to report on. And sometimes we can have two different media outlets reporting on the exact same story, and diversity actually comes from how we would approach that story, and how our contacts and the voices that we choose to put on air, how they make that piece come alive. But I would say that if, like, this is, like I've said it, I think a number of times now, it's a very competitive industry. And if you don't have the passion, if you don't have the grit and the determination to kind of make it, to really, really push forward with this, you won't. It's just as simple as that. There's loads of people that want to be a journalist, and there's a lot of competition, and there's a lot of barriers, not only within the industry, but also within our communities. It's not really seen as a viable job a lot of the time. And a lot of time people just think, okay, you only make it if you're on TV. Well, that's not the case. The Pulitzer Prize, which is one of the most prominent journalism awards, is for written journalism, generally for written pieces. And some of the most prominent journalists have written amazing, amazing pieces. So it's not just about being on TV. Some people seem to think it's just on TV and anyone can do it. It's not that easy. But I would say that, look, I have kind of been blessed. I have reported from around the world. I reported from Libya, Myanmar, where you're seeing currently the coup taking place. I've reported in the Rohingya there, Central African Republic, Somalia, Syria, many places around the world, a lot of conflict zones. But yeah, it's a fast-paced job. It's a lot of pressure, and you have to make a lot of sacrifices. Just to give you an example of that, I think last year I didn't see my family for 4.5 months. I was away from home. and I didn't go back because I was just working flat out. And I couldn't go to see them. And this stint that I'm doing currently I'm sitting in Doha and I'm going back to Tehran on the weekend. I by the end of that, I won't have seen my family for at least 3 months. So there's a lot of sacrifices that we kind of make in this job, and it's a very demanding job, and sometimes not very kind of conducive to like family. It's difficult on your families. I'm not sure what else I can add unless people have specific questions.
That's fine, Jazakallah khair. I think it's just to get an overview on basically what your job entails. So alhamdulillah, that's very good, Jazakallah khair. So we've got one more speaker, and then we'll move on to the question and answers to allow the youth to ask any questions. So Jazakallah khair, Asad. So next we have Malak Al-Ubaidi. So Malak she studied media and she's currently working as a media studies teacher. So we had a look at people who are working in the media in the industry. So now we can look at someone working media in academia, inshallah. So whenever you're ready, Malak.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. I'm so sorry that I've actually joined a bit late. So I also have missed quite a bit of it. My apologies for that. And also sorry for the messy background. Yeah, my name is Malak Ubaidi. And I actually, I've had quite a varied kind of career progression over the past few years, and I know I look like I'm a child. I'm very baby faced, but I am 24 years old, almost 25, and I started my career in media actually from the age of 15 actually, and I started by working for a youth magazine in the local borough, and I really do recommend. That's something that I tell a lot of people. I'm currently, I should probably start with what I'm doing right now. I'm a media teacher. I teach media studies in a sixth form college, year 12 and 13. So I always tell them, where to start working in media. It can, a lot of people really do struggle with getting their foot in the door and just getting themselves into the industry, and that is always the hardest thing. Once you're in, it's so much easier. You start meeting people, you start getting to know people, and I would really recommend just jump into it as wherever you can possible. And especially with technology these days, everything's online. Obviously with lockdown, we've got this Zoom conferences, really good. I mean, for example, this one is just so beneficial. But there's always going to be opportunities just to get yourself socializing, interacting with people. You get opportunities come from that. So what I did was when I was 15, 16, I just wanted to get my foot in the door, and I worked as a journalist, just kind of reports around the area, what's going on, events, just going to events, writing reports. And I also started a YouTube channel when I was 16, and it was a travels channel. So I did kind of food and culture, every city that I'd go to, or even just here in London, any event that I go to, I would actually take a camera with me and a tripod, and sometimes if I had a friend with me, I'd get them to film, and I'd have a little microphone, a clip-on microphone that I stole from my dad, and I would just interview everyone there. I'd be like, what do you think of the event? What are you learning from this event? What can you benefit from this event? And it was really it took me out of my comfort zone. I was just kind of in everyone's faces. I was taking shots of everything, and I just put them together, put it up on YouTube, and that helped introduce me into the world of presenting and reporting. So that kind of the skills were beginning to develop, and after that I was just really excited about everything. I was like, I don't want to stop. And then I took part in a lot of extracurricular activities at school that were to do with that. I realized that my school didn't have a school magazine, so I started one myself, and I got a few people. I realized that some other people really liked the opportunity. So I had a photographer, someone interested in photography. They came on board. There was other writers, so we kind of just created this this online magazine for everyone. And then when it was time for uni, I actually decided to take a gap year, and that's another thing that I would definitely recommend, especially nowadays, because with with COVID going on, a lot of people are finding it very difficult to, especially young people, to progress into, you know, university or maybe even apprenticeships. So you do need to take that time to just really reflect on everything that's going on. And taking a gap year really helped me to do that. I knew what I wanted to do. I definitely knew that I wanted to study media studies at university. And I also knew what university I wanted to go to. I went to Goldsmiths University, which has a very strong media studies course. And it was 50% practical, 50% theory, because that's, you know, practical is something that I knew I wanted to, that would help me strive. Even in education, I needed to get that practical sense. So I knew that was the course for me. But I took a gap year anyway. I just wanted to kind of think about things and take some time to work and kind of build myself before I go into university, because I felt like at the time when I do study at uni, I would be able to take my experience with me, and that would help me build, you know, educationally when it comes to, you know, assignments and just my studies. It would have helped push me for a bit further, and alhamdulillah that did. And I took a gap year. I worked for a television production company in the UAE, and then I did 6 months there, 6 months here. I worked for a production company that works with the BBC, and that was a really nice insight into television production, in addition to, you know, journalism. And then I went into television production during that year. Then during my time at university, again, extracurricular activities, events, you know, so networking is very, very important when it comes to the media industry, getting yourself kind of known. I kept on going with my YouTube channel. I just, you know, my dream was to be a presenter from a very young age, and I really stuck with it, and I did everything I could to make that happen. And alhamdulillah, I'm very you know, content with achieving that dream. You know, sometimes it's not, you don't have to kind of go the whole, you know, 9 yards. I was satisfied with just being able to put a few videos out there and make people aware of you know, the events that were going on, or cultures that are happening, or, you know, halal food places that you can find out about. You know, even a small audience or local community was enough for me. You know, I felt like I was achieving my dream of using my voice for a greater good. Alhamdulillah. So then I worked for radio. So radio was where I really found myself at university. I decided to host my own radio show. I started the university radio station, and then I actually got picked up by an independent radio station called Women's Radio Network. And they heard my episodes online, and they decided to hire me to work for them. And so I had the same show going broadcasting on two stations at the same time, juggling that with university. I also worked as a production assistant for a company. I started as an intern and then worked my way up to get a proper job with them. So it was just kind of, you will be very busy in the media industry, that's for sure, working with media. But it's if you enjoy it and you love it and you have a passion for it, then it doesn't matter, honestly. It's really fun. But you will be overworked, and I will be real with you. I think that's something that a lot of people from the media industry tend to not share, is that working in the media industry can be tiring and exhausting, but as long as you have, you know, the right intentions. My intention was always to raise awareness on really important issues in the world, use my voice, like I said, for the greater good. Also, I think being a Muslim, you know, covered young woman, my face, you know, out there, my voice being out there, that kind of I think that in itself was very motivating to a lot of people, a lot of young people as well, and that you know, had a huge message behind it, that, you know, we have a voice and we're allowed to use it, you know. And so the intentions are very important. So once you have that intention, and it's the right intentions, you know, I having God behind everything that you do is the most important intention that you could have. So that really helped kind of keep me going. So if you do have that, then that drive, that will be your drive throughout. but yeah, it is very tiring. You know, I found myself working kind of 4 jobs at the same time at once, along with university. And then when I finished with university, I actually decided, you know what, you know, I'm satisfied with what I've done. You know, I feel like I've achieved my dream, like I said, of presenting and using my voice. And then I decided to take a training course for teaching, so teacher training course to teach media studies, again also with Goldsmiths. I think it's very important when if you want to teach media studies to have that experience in the industry, and that really helps me when it comes to teaching my students. I teach them about the media industry now, and also about representation in the media industry and how media communicate certain messages and ideologies through the media. Because I've had that experience behind the camera or in front of the camera, you know, producing myself, I'm able to, you know, bring that into the classroom. And I think my students really do value that, and appreciate it. And what I do now is just focus on the young people that I am teaching and letting them have the sense of responsibility and capability to use their voice for the greater good. And that's something that I'm trying to instill with my teaching practice. It's something that I want to keep going, and that's my new drive. You know, I just want to make it clear that you can change the world one voice at a time, and as cheesy as it sounds, but that you can do that working in the industry, you can do that teaching it, you can do it studying it even. You know, media studies, studying it actually is a very transferable subject. So the skills that you learn from studying media studies or working in it, the skills you can actually apply to a range of different things. You know, in research, whether it's production, whether it's presenting, whether it's researching, even just writing. There's a whole range of things that you can do with the skill sets that you build from working in the media. But yeah, I think I've covered everything. I'm not sure if I've missed anything out. Please do feel free to ask me. And I appreciate you giving me the time to speak to you today.
Okay, alhamdulillah, jazakallah khair. Okay, so that's good. It's very nice to hear from a young voice, as well as how the level that the person goes through and the stages that they need to go through to actually make it in the media industry, and how maybe the little steps that the person needs to make. So that's good. I think now we've got one more speaker, but he's in America, so there's a time difference, so he may join us soon, inshallah. So now we'll open the floor for questions. I'll open the chat. So if you want, so we'll have questions in 2 formats. If you want, you can type your question in the chat and the presenters will be able to answer it in the chat. Or if you want to ask your question, use the Zoom function to raise your hand, and I'll allow you to unmute and ask your question. And inshallah, the presenters will be able to answer your questions. So we've got Musa. Go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum.
Thanks, Rahmatullah.
Okay, my question was, is there any practical advice you'd give people if they want to go into media? So for example, so most of us probably be at college or maybe secondary at university. What would you advise us to do from this point to be able to have a significant impact in the media sector?
Is there anyone you want to direct this question to, or just
No, this is general for everyone.
Okay, I think we've only got Asad and Malak left here. If either of you wants to answer the question, go ahead.
Yeah, I can.
Yep.
So when I was speaking earlier, what I said was that I would always make contacts and write your stories, like even if it's just a blog. See what's happening. Even if there's a breaking news story in your area, you should try and go cover it yourself. Find out the number for the local newspaper, the local radio station, pick up the phones, find out who the editor is, speak to them, say, listen, I've come out here, I've got this contact or so forth, or I've spoken to this person, do you want the story? Or, you know, especially radio, so you can take your mobile phone and get a few interviews on your phone. with people, see what's happening, or just go and find stories that haven't been told yet in your own local area or your own city, and pitch them. Pick up the phone, find out emails, drop emails to people. I'm making it sound really simplistic. Sometimes it is, but it's still very, very difficult. It takes that kind of confidence to be able to do that. But the only way you're going to get that confidence is if you start early. And I'll do that. I so many times I kind of covered local stories that BBC and stuff were doing, and I ended up doing it better than they were doing it, and that got some of my work noticed. So that's one way. The other thing is, look, there's always stories happening within our communities, even internationally. Like, we have to bear in mind, many of us have parents or grandparents from other countries that we may be tapped into those communities, and so we have access to those and language skills to use those to kind of write stories and pitch them, whether it's or even do radio or TV. So just take a camera and do your own thing. So that's what I would do. I would say that become very used to how to tell a story. What's the headline? What's happening? Who is it? Why is it important? Why should people know about these? These are the basics that you should learn very early on. So when you actually talk to an editor, you know exactly what you're going to say. Okay, this is a story. This is why it's important, and this is why I'm the best place to tell it.
Jazakallah khair. Is there anything you want to add, Malak?
Here I am. I definitely agree with Asad about, just putting yourself out there. And like I said earlier as well, I think networking is a huge thing. But you cannot be shy trying to get into the media industry. I recommend just speaking to anyone and everyone that you are able to. And because we're online, our whole life is kind of moved online now at the moment with our current situation. I would really recommend joining these kind of conferences and socializing. If you're going into university or you've got groups of people, start your own conferences, start your own groups, and pick like a certain case or project that you kind of want to report on as a group, and it's a really fun kind of way into the industry, and that will add to your portfolio. There's something else that I think I would recommend to young people right now is to build your portfolio, because you're going to get to a point in the future where they're going to ask you to show them what you've done. And it's very difficult if you don't know where to start. So you've got stuff like Instagram, you've got YouTube. We are all content creators now, and we can all put in things out there. So I would definitely do recommend paying a bit of attention to that as well. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. Next we've got Tayyib. You had a question. You can unmute yourself.
Yeah. Assalamu alaikum. I have a question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how hard is it to find a job in journalism once you have graduated with a degree in journalism or media or broadcasting media, etc., etc.?
Okay, either Malak or Asad, if this is something you...
On a scale of 1 to 10, it's about 12, mate. It's look, man, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It's tough. It is a tough industry, and like, if you look, a lot of young people I come across, I'm not saying you're like this, they just want to be on TV, or they just want to be a presenter or something. And my thing to them is that if you just want to be on TV or just want to be a presenter, that's all you're ever going to get. Like, but if you want to tell people, stories, if you're passionate about journalism, then you're much likely to get further. And if you've finished your degree or you finished your postgraduate and you already have a portfolio of work and you've told stories, you stand a much better chance. But again, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. A lot of the time in this industry, especially the British media industry is very insular and it's very narrow. And it's a lot of times it's about who you know rather than what you know. I was very, very lucky a lot of the times because my work kind of stood out and I was recommended by other journalists for my work, and I kind of got a few breaks here and there. But it's, if you're going to be a journalist, and when I mean journalist, you're going to be a reporter, right? That doesn't mean like writing comment pieces. That's very different. If you're going to be a reporter, if you're going to go out and tell stories, then be prepared for a lot of difficult times. A lot of the time you won't make money. You seriously won't make money. You won't make it. And if you do make money, you won't make a lot. And I'll give you an example. I went out to Burma to cover the Rohingya crisis. So all my costs, my flights, my travel, my food, hotels, and I wrote this really amazing article that got picked up by Vice News. And I got paid 150 quid for it. 150 quid didn't even cover my hotels. And that's just the reality of it. And a lot of the times you're chasing those people to pay you as a freelancer. You say, look, where's my money? Where's my money? 3 months down the line, you're still saying, where's my money? So it's not easy. And I know a lot of people think it's glamorous because they see people on TV. That's a different world. You know, and I'll also say that, look, there's a lot of outlets outside of the UK. The British media it's not be all and end all of it. And also the British media isn't all that. You know, they have some really good reporting, a lot of good journalism, but there's other media outlets that are way better, I feel, and especially more accommodating of kind of Muslims and ethnic minorities than the kind of narrow UK media.
Yeah, I have another question. How do you find work experience for journalism and stuff related to that? And does work experience make it easier for you to find a job, as employers will see that you have some sort of pre-experience, so then you stand out compared to other people?
Do you want me to answer that?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Yeah, look, like I said, any kind of anything that you have, any stories that you've covered, any radio, TV, anything that you've done, any form of experience that you've had, not only will make you stand out, but also will get you used to the newsroom. Like sometimes when there's breaking news, it doesn't suffer fools. There's no standing around, right? Especially in a newsroom. Sometimes it's go, go, go. Like I work for a 24-hour news channel, right? And sometimes I'll work 20 hours a day. Sometimes I'm working 22 hours a day. Sometimes I've actually slept on the floor of the studio. And there's pictures of me on Twitter and Instagram. You see me sleeping on the floor in between my lives. And just being in that environment will get you used to how news works, understand how news works, how easy it is to make mistakes, but also give you the confidence to realize what a news story is, how to tell it, and how to move, and how to kind of understand what everyone else is doing in the newsroom and their roles, and whether it's suited for you or not. So any form of experience, even as a magazine, newspaper, local radio station, community radio station, anything you can get is always good. But also it helps you build those contacts, because you may meet an editor at a regional radio station or a community one that could go on to work for nationally or an international one. And then you have that contact, so you can email them and they say, oh yeah, I remember this person. I worked with them, they're pretty good. And then that's how you kind of get into the industry sometimes.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. Rashid, you got your hand up? You can unmute yourself and ask.
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. This is for, in general, in the filmmaking industry, we know that there are lots of things contradicting our religion. How can we avoid these stuff without doing any haram in the filmmaking industry?
I think we've got Shahroz here. You can start, and then Shahroz, you can also speak as well.
Sure. I just wanted to, because that's something that I have a lot of passion for. So when you asked that question, I was thinking about a lot of things, a lot of experiences that I've had with that. And there's a lot of the time where you kind of you're put in situations where you're not happy with. There was a lot of times where you'd work with people who don't share the same views, or for example, I worked on a production of a show where the kind of things that were talked about wasn't, it doesn't click with the views that I had personally and in relation to my religion. There's a lot of moments where you will need to act on your own judgment based on that, and like I said earlier, your intention behind everything that you do, you want to make sure that your intention is pure and the right intention, so putting God in with everything that you do. So there will be times where you need to remove yourself from certain situations, and it will look weird or odd to other people, but if as long as you believe that it's the right thing to do, there's times where I realized that I've had to muster up the courage to say, you know, I'm not happy with working on this right now. I think I'd rather if you could just maybe have me on for a different episode or a different experience or whatever it may be. You have every right to speak up, and I think that's a huge problem in the media industry, is that when we start off in the media industry, we start off very lower down the ladder, so we are taken advantage of quite a bit, and because as Muslims, that's something that I think people tend to do a bit more, because of we try and do everything, you know, in the good way and respectful and polite. I hope we try and do that, but it is difficult. So we do really need to speak up and be strong about things. If we're not happy with something, we really need to be vocal about that. I would recommend you know, saying if you're not happy with something, and you can control what you do and how you do it. So I would recommend you know, being strong. Yeah.
Okay. Jazakallah khair. Sharoz, do you want to add anything to this?
Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Yeah? Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Just wanted to say I completely agree with everything Sister Malek has said. The only thing I'd add to that is, if we're not represented in this industry, how will the industry ever change, right? That's the first thing. And so just to give you some context, alhamdulillah, by Allah's grace, I've been working on different film sets for about 2 years now. And in my time, I've not missed a prayer whilst on a film set. And what, you know, that's not always been easy. Sometimes it's literally been, you know, running off, going into the middle of nowhere, praying, and then just kind of coming back. But I made it a big point, right, to tell my, you know, my director that, look, this is something that I do. So at convenient moments, you know, I will be popping off. And for me, the biggest learning was in one of my first weeks on the job, when we were still in the office, I used to pray in the staircase, and it was a little bit dusty there, but I just thought, like, there's not going to be space for me in a film studio to just go off and pray, and so I thought, why should I like kind of bother everyone else? Like, I'm trying to kind of fit in and assimilate at the moment, so I'll just go do my thing. If it ever comes up in conversation, I'll tell people. But what happened is, one day my manager saw me praying in the stairway, and he called me to the side, and I thought, oh, he's just going to say, like, this is a bit weird, what are you doing, what is this thing? And what he actually said was, I know that you're praying. I don't think you should be praying in a place this dirty. You should ask us for cleaner facilities. And what he did was, he gave me my own key to a room where I could go and pray whenever I wanted. And that room didn't exist for prayer or meditation or anything. That was a room that had a specific purpose for their costumes and stuff. But he said, like, yeah, look, you know, if people smoke, we're going to give them 5-minute breaks. We're going to make sure that they're catered for. So if you need to pray for 5 minutes in a day, we're going to make sure that you have the facilities to do that. So that's the first thing I'd say. Just like us being in this industry will go very far. That being said, there's tough decisions you need to make. Like Sister Malek said, like, I was offered a job on a very prominent Netflix show, which is extremely explicit. And I was really grateful to be offered that job. And by Allah's grace, I already had a job. But if I were in a position where I was extremely broke, no jobs, no opportunities coming up, and that was the only thing that were offered to me, that would be a huge dilemma. But alhamdulillah, in that position, I made dua to Allah, and I was able to say no without any regrets, even though it would have been great for my career, even though it would have been a huge move. It's a humongous show, very popular. So that's the one thing I'd say: be sincere, ask Allah for guidance, and He will help you 100%. Final thing I'm going to say, and then I'm going to have to go, is make your own stuff. If you're interested in filmmaking, if you're interested in films, definitely try and get the experience, be on set, learn from the best of the best, refine your craft. But at the same time, we want to tell our stories. Doesn't mean only make films about Muslims. It means that if you want to tell a story in an authentic way, with an environment that is conducive to you as a Muslim, whatever that means, right, then make that happen yourself. And alhamdulillah, like I've been in environments where we've been able to make films where we've had prayer breaks, we've been chilling, even though the majority of the set is non-Muslim, they completely understand what we're going to do as Muslims. And we bake that into the production day. So that's what I'd say. Jazakallah khair. And if you have any questions, just feel free to get in touch with me.
Jazakallah khair. We've got another question, Abdul Wahab al-Mash'al. Do you want to unmute yourself and ask?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I was just gonna ask if you recommend any workshops for us to help us in our career.
Which career? Media career?
Yeah.
Okay. Any one of the presenters, be my guest. Anyone want to speak about this? Malak, Asad, any workshops you recommend, Sharoz?
Personally, I don't know any off by heart, but there are a lot of online workshops, work experiences. The ones that I used to do as a growing up as a kid, I used to join Apple actually do workshops online and in the Apple store back in the day before everything was online. And they do workshops for filmmaking, editing using iMovie. They do workshops for Lightroom, kind of Adobe softwares, and obviously those are really helpful skills to have if you add them on your CV. You know, photo editing, film editing, photography, filming, all of these different kind of things that you can do will be very good for your portfolio and also for your CV. So Apple do really nice online workshops for young people online. You can also find universities actually do, for example, UCL, I used to take a creative writing course with them every year when I was growing up. And they are, yes, the Apple workshops are free. I just saw someone direct messaged me. The Apple workshops are free. And also the university workshops that they do, it's kind of like a summer program, but what they sometimes tend to do is once a week kind of thing for like 6 weeks, which is great. I would also recommend Roundhouse online. They do a lot of free workshops for 16 to 25-year-olds and I think younger than that as well, where they do writing courses, and they also do kind of general production courses, even sound engineering, which is great to have in your pocket if you wanted to work in radio. And I also would recommend your local council, your local youth clubs, your local schools. Really take advantage of the opportunities that are there for you with youth clubs, with kind of councils they do for the local neighborhood. Those are really good for work experience. Someone asked that earlier, and also for workshops, just to kind of crash courses. So I hope that helps.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. Asad or Sharoz, do you have any courses you recommend?
All I'd say is there was a comment about how much stuff there is available on YouTube, and I would wholeheartedly echo that. I've never been to film school, and I work alongside a lot of people who've trained at some of the best film schools in the world. And honestly, everything you could learn in a film school, you can learn off YouTube, and even better yet, try and get practical, try and get practical experience. And one way to do that is I used to do a lot of promo work, and they're not particularly well paid. They'll give you, when you're starting out, you might get just enough budget to, pay for, your basic expenses, do your kit, and get a little bit on top. What I used to do is I used to sacrifice that little bit on top I get, and instead what I'd do is I'd use that money to rent a more expensive camera. Now, the thing is, they're benefiting hugely from that. I'm sacrificing my salary for that. But what I'm getting in return is I now have experience with a much more professional camera. And so I did a few things like that until I had, kind of the top cinema cameras under my belt and in my experience. And once you've done a few of those, you're able to charge way more. Your portfolio just becomes a lot more professional, a lot better, and you can climb the ladder a lot faster. But honestly, people message me all the time with advice about which camera should I get, how do I write, how do I start this? Everything you need to learn is on YouTube. Do not underestimate it.
Jazakallah khair. So we've got Professor Faisal here. Will speak to us about art. We'll just take one last question from Talha Amin, and then we'll move on to our final speaker, inshallah. Talha, do you want to go? You can unmute yourself.
Yes, assalamu alaikum.
Thanks, Talha.
Yeah, so Brother Shiroz, something you said, I just wanted to pick up on. You said about how the industry changing, how we want the industry to start changing. So specifically to in regards to movies and films and so on and so forth, what would be the benefits and kind of advantages the Muslimin as a kind of whole would attain from the media changing and from the industry kind of becoming more Muslim friendly, if that makes sense?
So I mean, on a very surface, first of all, excellent question. On a more surface level response, we'll have the potential to be in writers' rooms. We'll have the potential to be directing and producing stuff. We'll be commissioners at the BBC and Channel 4. If a Muslim who understands Muslim issues, who knows authenticity, right, who knows the things that young people will relate to, young Muslims will relate to, is the commissioner at BBC or Channel 4, you're going to see a whole different level of output and programming. And, you know, when you see horrible stereotypes about Muslims that are perpetuated in film and media, inshallah, we'll get to a place where that completely stops, where the Muslims are always represented as terrorists or, you know, other silly stereotypes. And then again, on a more surface level thing, stories that we might really resonate with, like if, you know, there must be a lot of fans of Ertugrul, right? Imagine that there was this incredible, huge Netflix series, the way that Vikings is, or the way that, you know, some of the other huge budget series are, about some of the most prominent figures in Islam, like Mansa Musa, you know, like, you know, Salahuddin al-Ayyubi, right? And if these stories are told, but from a genuine, authentic, historically accurate perspective, right? So that's number two. And then number three is that just us being involved, right, allows us to have this influence on storytelling, which is so impactful to so many people, right? The kinds of characters you see and the kinds of stories you hear and watch in film and TV. And it'll allow us to have the kinds of dialogue, right, with people through our stories that we might not otherwise be able to have having a one-to-one conversation. So for me, for example, a lot of the philosophical concepts in Islam, a lot of the morals and values that I gain from Islam, I'm really excited about putting those into stories and putting those into films in a way that when you're watching it, you have no idea that this is even Islam, that this is even religious, right? You're watching a film that, you know, the moral at the end is telling you, oh, wow, you know, mothers are incredibly important to us and mothers do so much for us. I've gotten that concept from a hadith, right, where the Prophet ﷺ tells us, you know, the person who's most deserving of your right is your mother. The person who's most deserving is your mother. The person who's most deserving is your mother. The chance to do that kind of thing, right, to spread, you know, truth and positivity and incredible values, the beauty that we get from Islam with the world through storytelling is immense. And we can only be in those positions if we start to get involved in the industry and we make that change.
Jazakallah khair for that. Alhamdulillah, I think this is very beneficial. We spoke a lot about media. I think it's time to speak about art. So we have Professor Faisal with us, who teaches art at university. So Professor Faisal, please tell us about art and tell us what a person can do with if they have an artistic touch, let's say, or do they need one for the
Assalamu alaikum. And it's great to be here. But what I want to do is just basically just say who I am. My name is Dr. Faisal Abdulwala. I trained in the UK went to do my master's there. And I trained as a printmaker, as a fine artist, did my master's. A lot of my work is shown in museums and galleries. The content of my work looks at identity, looks at my faith, looks at issues that we're facing as, you know, as I was facing as a young Muslim growing up in London. in the 80s and the 90s. And I became interested in art when I first went to the National Portrait Gallery with my art teacher. And I realized that all the paintings and images of people that looked like me were in subservient positions. So the people who were talking about, my own body were not people who looked like me, but they were portraying my body in a very negative light. And I made a promise to myself that I'd become an artist to make sure I would try and change the narrative. Just like what Brother Shiraz Khan said about being in the room to be able to make those changes. So I decided to become an artist as a way that I could tell a story that wasn't being told, and that was more authentic, and that was much more kind of broad in its input. And I began doing that from when I graduated from school at 23 years old, and began to have shows, sell my work. And interesting to what Brother Khan was saying was how you're able to start doing the hustle. So as a young 23-year-old person in London, I began having shows, selling my work, doing a bit of teaching, and earning small bits of money here and there. I think after about 5 or 6 years, I'd made enough money to deposit on a shop in Harlesden, and I made it my studio. And also I made the upstairs a commercial unit, a barbershop. So I was able to have an income coming in from the barbershop as well as my art studio in the basement. And that gave me a very good foundation that I could continue my life as working as an artist, but I also had an extra income coming in from the barbershop. And the shop has been there since 1999 now, and it's well established, and there's probably 7 barbers working in there, and that makes an income. 7 years ago, after making my work for 20 plus years, I was asked by this university, University of Wisconsin, to apply for a job as a professor. And this is me thinking, wow, me being a professor. And I was offered the job, and I've been here 7 years. Now, for anyone that wants to go into education and have a career as an artist, the only way you can do that, there are 2 kinds of institutions. There are teaching institutions and there are research institutions. A research institution wants you as an artist or a filmmaker or a poet to continue on your research and teach. A teaching institution, you teach 5 days a week. So I work at a research institution, and this is what my week looks like. On a Monday, I spend time in my studio. They give me a studio, and I plan my classes. My classes are only on Tuesday and Thursday. I only teach 2 days a week. And my class runs from 8 o'clock in the morning to 1:30 in the afternoon. That's why I came on this call at 7:30, because my class finishes at 1:30. So I only teach 2 days, 8 till 1:30 on a Tuesday, 8 till 1:30 on a Thursday, and the rest of the time, the university says that I must do my research. So I'm making work about, what it means to be a young Muslim, what it means to have faith, making work about identity. So I'm spending my own time making my own work, and I get paid a full-time salary for 2 days' work. And obviously in between, I might go to a few meetings, but my only obligation is to teach 2 days a week because I'm at a research institution. And I get a full-time salary, and I only have to work 9 months out of the year. So I work only up until May. When May comes, the next 3 months, we're off doing our research. So I can travel, I have my exhibitions, I do writing. And when you're at a research institution, the university pays your travel, pays for your materials, pays for your equipment. So I bought a camera that was £8,000. The university gave me the money. I needed to fly to New Zealand to do a project. The university paid my flight. So a research institution gives you all of the support for you to create your work. So I can continue my career as an artist, fully supported by the institution. And I can continue my life as an educationalist in the institution, and they don't require me to take up too much of my time. Because if you're full-time teaching, you don't have time to continue your life as an artist. So at my university, we have writers, we have poets, we have actors. You know, we're not an art school. We're a big university that has different departments: engineering, agronomy, environmental art. So we have big areas, but in the arts, we're fully supportive of all our arts faculty. And what kind of skills or requirements do you need to get into this career? I would say the first thing that you need is belief. That's the first thing. You need belief. Second thing, faith. Third thing, hard work. While your friends are, when I was doing my work at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, my friends were still sleeping. So hard work. You need to have good writing skills. Be a good public speaker. I think reading really helps your vocabulary. That's really important. A degree can help. It's not necessarily that important, because what they're looking at is what you do as a creative person. And I know some artists who are doing extremely well, never got the degree, but they put on some of the best shows, they've written some of the best books. People are looking at what you produce. So it's very important to focus on your craft. So if you want to be an architect, if you want to be a fashion designer, if you want to be a photographer, you need to put in what Malcolm Gladwell calls the 10,000 hours to perfect your craft. Once you perfected your craft, there isn't a single person out there can shut the door in your face because your craft isn't good. They have to come up with some other excuse to say that this person is, too dark or whatever, or this person is a Muslim, or this person is. They have to come up with some other excuse, but you need to spend time in perfecting your craft. And I would say go to a lot of shows and look at what people do. That's another way of actually learning, because how do soccer players learn to be good soccer players? They watch other soccer players. So, you have to look at people in your industry, study what they're doing, and then you'll be able to be, great at your career. I think that's my 10 minutes, isn't it?
That's fine, Jazakallah khair. Very good. It's nice to hear that someone can pursue their interests while also living a comfortable life with that. Alhamdulillah, it's very nice to hear. We are about to finish. I'll open the door if anyone has one more question for the art field, because we had a lot of questions for media. It doesn't seem so.
I have a question.
Yes, Tayyib, go ahead.
You have to be good at maths and physics in order to be an architect.
Yes, you do need to have those qualities, but you may have heard of David Adjaye, Sir David Adjaye, the architect. He's a very, very good friend of mine, and we're working on projects. And what he does, his company does take interns. So what I will say to you, if you want to be an architect and you're not great at maths or physics, I would recommend you contact certain architectural firms and say, do you have any summer intern positions? And it's the same with people that want to be a photographer or a painter, whatever. Contact those artists directly and say, hey, I'm a young person, I'm interested in that field. Do you have any internships or placements that I can work with you, shadow you for maybe 3 weeks or 2 weeks, and say you'll do it for free? And more times, often than not, those end up with being paid positions. So definitely reach out to people in the field to try and get some experience.
Where would you find their details?
So David Adjaye, you can find him online. You can just email the office and go to the main desk and just say who you are, you're a young person, you're a young student. Are there any summer positions? And feel free to reach out to me, send me an email, and I can forward that information on. So my email address is really simple. It's abduallah@wisc.edu. So it's ABDUALLAH@WISC.edu. So you can find me. Just go to Faisal Abduallah, University of Wisconsin. You can find me, find my email address, reach out to me, and I'm happy to help you connect the dots.
Can you put your email in the chat, please? So
Yes,
I can screenshot
I
it.
can do that. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Jazakallah.
Jazakumullah khair. Jazakumullah khair for our speakers. Jazakumullah khair for those who stayed with us. Alhamdulillah, I think this was a very beneficial session. I hope we now have a bit more insight into these different careers. I hope we've seen and we've learned from these stories. Well, we do have, as the Youth Center, we are giving you the opportunity, if you need to, get in touch with any of these professionals. Send us an email at yasenyouthtours@gmail.com and we will pass on your message and give you a response or put you directly in touch with this person. So yes, we've had a Q&A session here, but you're more than welcome to ask more questions if you wish. Just send us an email at yasenyouthtours@gmail.com. So inshallah, I think before we finish, I want to share my screen. I want to show you the programs that we've got left. Okay, give me a second. The programs that we've got left as part of the Yaseen youth program. I clicked the wrong button here. Okay, let me do that again. Share. Okay, so this is what we got for the Yaseen Youth Tours program. So you can see here we've had the careers advice day today. Tomorrow there's a story night. It's a sisters only event on Zoom, 7 p.m. All times are UK GMT times. Thursday we've got the story of Yusuf alayhi salam by Sayyid and Sheikh Asif ad-Din, 7 p.m. GMT time. Friday we've got the normal Salat al-Jum'ah. We've got 2 salawat at 12:30 and 1:15 p.m. Saturday we've got a quiz night, so it's a quiz, generic questions and answers. Some may be even related to the Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, but we also have generic question and answers, and there will be a prize for the winner. Last time I had a quiz, it was very, very enjoyable for those who participated, so we encourage you to join. And finally, on Sunday, we've got a sisters event, Medina drive-through. They'll go through, we've got someone in Medina who drive through the main sites in Medina and speak about them. That's between 4 to 6. And from 6 to 7, we've got Deen and Dunya. So we've got an event where successful Muslims speak to us about their story so that we can learn from it and see if we want to pursue that path where they became wealthy and successful. As well, whilst also holding on to their Islamic ethos. So this is the program that we've got for you. This event was actually streamed live on YouTube. So if you go to our Yaseen Youth Center or Yaseen Youth Tours YouTube channel, you can view a recording of this. If you missed the beginning or you want to hear something again, you can listen to a recording of this. So with that, we finish off. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to reward everyone that was involved in this project. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to all have successful careers. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to achieve what we desire so long as it is in His sake and for His sake. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wa salli Allahumma wa sallim wa barik ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Subhanaka Allahumma bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Wassalamu alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.